Rule number 1. No one stays the night. Rule number 2. No mutual friends. Rule number 3. Don't bring the sister. 3 rules. That's all we agreed on when my wife decided we needed to modernize our marriage. I didn't make the rules. I just nodded while she scribbled them down in a pink leather notebook, like it was a classroom exercise. She even underlined number 3 twice. I remember because I asked her why that one needed underlining. She smiled without looking up and said, "Because you're predictable." She was right. I was predictable. I wore the same 5 t-shirts in rotation, ate peanut butter toast every morning. I backed up all my files in 2 separate clouds, and I had my parents' Wi-Fi password memorized even though I haven't been to their house in 8 years. And I never broke rules. Not until I did. Not until Kala. That weekend, when I pulled into the resort parking lot, she looked over at me in the passenger seat and whispered, "Are you sure about this?" And I, spineless, trembling, desperate me, I just nodded. Because I wasn't sure of anything anymore, except one thing. My wife said she wanted freedom, so I gave her mine. This didn't start as revenge. Revenge would have required confidence, strategy, a backbone. I didn't have any of those. I was just tired of being the one sitting at home, eating takeout off paper plates while my wife explored connections with guys who wore cologne names I couldn't pronounce. I was tired of sleeping next to someone who smiled at their phone more than at me. I was tired of knowing but pretending not to know. Kala came to stay with us because her apartment flooded. That's what Jessa told me, at least. In hindsight, I think it might have been a setup, a test. But Kala? She was nothing like her sister. Quieter, sharper, more tired than she let on. We didn't talk much that first week. Just polite nods in the kitchen. But there was one night, a Thursday, when she knocked on my office door and asked if I had any earplugs. Jessa was in the other room, on a call. One of her late-night Zooms. She never said with who. I stopped asking. Kala leaned in the doorway, arms folded, and said, "Is this just normal now?" I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. She didn't either. She just sat on the edge of the couch and watched me work for almost an hour, in silence, like we were both afraid noise would make something real. That silence turned into long talks. Those talks turned into long drives. And those drives led to the resort. I never booked luxury anything in my life. I'm a 3-star guy, max. But I wanted something Jessa couldn't ignore. I wanted it to sting. Not because I hated her, but because I wanted to know if she could still feel something. When we checked in, the concierge smiled and asked, "Celebrating anything?" Kala laughed. I said nothing. But the truth? Yeah, I was celebrating something. The part of me that finally broke the rules. Even the one that was underlined twice. The thing about luxury resorts is, they expect you to be happy. Every inch of those places is built to reflect the version of yourself you pretend to be on vacation. Relaxed, romantic, spontaneous. But Kala and I weren't any of those things. We were 2 people carrying dynamite in a glass suitcase, pretending we were just there for the spa. I thought maybe she'd back out before we even checked in. I gave her every chance. I left long pauses in the car ride up, like escape hatches. But she never took them. Maybe she was curious. Maybe she was broken, too. The first night, we didn't even touch. We just ordered dinner to the room, watched a documentary about jellyfish, and shared a bottle of overpriced wine we both pretended to enjoy. At one point, Kala asked me, "Do you think she'll find out?" I should have lied. Should have said no. But instead, I said, "She'll feel it before she knows it." Jessa always feels things first. And I was right. Because by the time the dessert tray came up the next day, she had already called me 6 times and left 3 voice messages that were way too calm. Calm in that scary, calculated way where you know a storm is preparing its teeth. She didn't cry in the messages. She didn't yell. All she said was, "I hope you're enjoying yourself. Truly. Just know I never expected you to stoop this low." Low. Low. I was the one eating dinner alone 5 nights a week while she went out healing with strangers. I was the one walking our dog in the rain because she said wet hair made her anxious. I was the one who kept the marriage alive by duct taping his heart together every night. And now I was low. Kala saw the missed calls. She didn't ask. She just quietly pushed the dessert tray closer and said, "Eat before it melts." That night, something shifted. There wasn't a kiss or some dramatic movie moment. Just a slow gravitational pull, like the kind you don't notice until your feet are already off the ground. She sat next to me on the bed and said, She thinks she owns your loyalty. I didn't respond. She said, softer this time. But she hasn't earned it in a long time. That line shattered something in me. Because deep down, I'd been waiting for someone, anyone, to say it out loud. That I wasn't crazy. That I wasn't the villain. That maybe, just maybe, being the nice guy who holds the flashlight while your wife digs her way out of your marriage doesn't make you a hero. It makes you complicit. The room felt hotter than it should have. Not in the sensual way, in the guilt way. That itchy, creeping warmth that comes when you realize you've crossed a line you swore you never would. And then she said something I'll never forget. She's going to cry. Not because you betrayed her, but because you reminded her that she's not irreplaceable. And sure enough, that same night, Jessa sent me a photo of herself crying. Mascara streaked, bottom lip trembling, full performance mode. Caption: it was supposed to be me. She didn't mean the vacation. She meant the regret. And suddenly, I didn't know whether to feel victorious or utterly, disgustingly small. Returning home felt like walking into a crime scene where you were both the victim and the suspect. Everything was untouched. Our hallway still smelled like cinnamon from the plug-in air freshener she always insisted on, and our dog, Winston, greeted me like nothing had changed. His tail wagged, his eyes sparkled, and for a moment I almost forgot what I'd done. What we had done. But then I saw her boots by the door, those black ones with the silver buckle she wore to feel powerful, and I remembered. Jessa wasn't home. Just a note on the counter that read, "Call me when you've found your spine." Kala didn't come in. She waited in the car with the window cracked, texting someone. I don't know who. I didn't ask. There was this invisible fog between us now, heavy with everything we didn't say during the drive back. I wanted to believe what we did was just a flicker in the dark, a moment of defiance. But the problem with flickers is that sometimes they catch something dry and spread. That night, Jessa returned. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She walked into the kitchen, made herself a smoothie, sat across from me at the table, and said, "So, it's war." I tried to tell her it wasn't like that she pushed me into a corner and handed me a match. She smiled like she'd heard it all before and said, "You picked the one person that turns this from a lesson into a scandal." I didn't even know what she meant at first. I thought she was talking about family drama, betrayal, broken trust, all that. But then she dropped the real bomb. Apparently, while we were away, Jess's job, her high-profile, curated, luxury brand relationship manager job, got wind of the affair. Not the open marriage. The sister part. One of her coworkers follows Kala on social media, and apparently, someone posted a photo. Just feet. Sand. A wine glass. But the caption read, "Forbidden fruit tastes better by the ocean." And just like that, the private became performance. Her coworkers had questions. Her boss had concerns. Her image was suddenly under review. I hadn't even thought about that. Not once. And I think that's what made her the angriest. "You didn't just betray me," she said, eyes narrowed. "You embarrassed me." That's when I realized something vital. Jessa didn't want monogamy or polyamory or any defined structure. What she wanted was control. She wanted a world where she could wander and explore while I stayed faithful and quietly available, like a lighthouse, always on, always waiting. But now the lighthouse had flickered, and she was furious that anyone on shore had noticed. Later that night, she left again. Didn't say where. Just grabbed a coat and slammed the door. The kind of slam that echoes in the drywall. I sat on the stairs with Winston at my feet, trying to figure out if I was supposed to feel guilty or liberated. I felt neither. I just felt numb. That numbness didn't last long. Because at 2:17 a.m., I got a text from Kala. "I need to tell you something. About Jessa. About why I really came to stay." And just like that, the floor gave way again. I stared at my screen, heart thudding like a panic alarm, wondering how deep this hole really went. Because if there was one thing I'd learned so far, it's that when you marry someone like Jessa, the rules were never there to protect you. They were written to protect her secrets. And now her sister was ready to spill them. I didn't reply right away. I just sat there staring at the message, blinking like if I squinted hard enough, it might change. My brain was already doing gymnastics trying to understand how my own wife had turned our marriage into a battlefield, and now her sister, the one person who had made me feel seen in months, was hinting she hadn't been entirely honest either. I finally wrote back. "Talk. Now." She asked me to meet her at a diner across town, One of those 24-hour places with tired booths and syrup-sticky menus. I put on sweatpants, a hoodie, didn't even brush my hair. I looked like I'd been dragged out of a nightmare, which, frankly, wasn't far off. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth, sipping a milkshake with that same faraway look she had the first time she watched me fall apart over microwave pizza and silence. When I sat down, she didn't greet me, just stared into her straw and said, "I should have told you before the resort. I just didn't know how." I braced myself, thought maybe she was going to confess to feelings, or worse, manipulation. But what she actually said was way worse than anything I could have imagined. "Jessa sent me," she said. "She asked me to stay with you to watch, to test you." At first, I laughed. Not because it was funny, it was the kind of broken laugh you give when your foundation cracks. I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. Her face was pale, serious, filled with a shame I didn't recognize on her before. "She told me you were already pulling away," Kala continued, "that you were checking out emotionally. She said if I could get close to you, not intimately, not at first, just enough to observe you, she could figure out if she was crazy or if you were already halfway gone." My heart dropped like an elevator cut from its wires. I felt sick. Not because Kala had betrayed me, not exactly, but because Jessa had engineered everything. She didn't just suggest the open marriage to heal something. She built a trap, and I walked into it blindfolded, holding her sister's hand. Kala was crying now, barely holding it together. "It wasn't supposed to go that far," she said. "I didn't plan for feelings, or for you to be so kind. I thought I'd hate you, honestly. I thought I'd find reasons to justify what she was doing. But all I saw was someone being left behind." I wanted to yell. I wanted to throw the glass of water on the table against the wall and walk out and never look back. But I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew I was being tested. I'd felt it. Every smile from Jessa that came too late. Every question that felt loaded. Every "go have fun tonight" that was laced with expectation. I just didn't think she'd use blood to bait the hook. "She asked me to take a photo," Kala whispered, "when we were at the resort. She wanted proof. She said if she ever needed leverage, that she could say you chose her sister, that you crossed the one line." And that's when it hit me. The photo. The one that showed up online. The one that got to her boss. It wasn't some accidental leak. It was planted. Kala looked at me through glassy eyes and said, "I posted it by accident. I swear. I had no idea she was watching my stuff. But she was. She was waiting for it." I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. All this time, I thought I'd detonated the marriage with one impulsive weekend. But in truth, the fuse had been lit months ago, and Jessa had been waiting for the right moment to make it explode in her direction, so she could walk away clean, head held high, sympathy in hand. She wanted to be the victim of the mess she designed. I looked Kala in the eye and asked the one question I wasn't sure I wanted an answer to. "Did you ever actually care about me? Or was I just a lab rat in your sister's science project?" She didn't answer right away. She just stared at the table, wiped her eyes, and whispered, "At first, no. But now, I don't know how to stop." I stood up and left before I could say something cruel. I didn't want to become the monster Jessa was hoping to paint me as. I walked out into the cold, my hands shaking, realizing for the first time that I had been living in a house made of mirrors, and every reflection was a lie someone else had written. And now, I didn't just lose a wife. I didn't just lose a sister-in-law. I lost the version of me that still believed people tell the truth when they say "I love you." I wish I could tell you that after Kala confessed, I found peace. That I confronted Jessa, we screamed it out, and some kind of closure happened. But this isn't one of those stories. This is the kind of story where every time you think it's over, someone pulls open a new trapdoor. The morning after the diner, I woke up to 37 unread messages. Not from Jessa, not from Kala, from strangers. People I didn't know, messaging me on every platform I had. Some just emojis, others whole paragraphs of disgust. Words like cheater, predator, and family wrecker flooded my inbox like sewage. My Instagram was tagged in half a dozen cryptic story reposts, screenshots of blurry texts, images that didn't show my face but were clearly me. And then, the headline. Luxury hospitality manager's husband accused of grooming sister-in-law during open marriage spiral. I froze. My vision went tunnel black for a second. My body shut down before my brain could even process it. That was the moment I realized. She didn't just want to punish me. She wanted to control the narrative. Jessa had gone to the press, not TMZ, not something tabloid-y. No, she went to a blog. One of those polished, feminist-leaning lifestyle sites she'd contributed to in the past. She gave them a first-person account of her emotional trauma and how betrayal can come from those closest to us. She never said my name. Never had to. Enough details were there to point fingers. She painted herself as a woman trying to salvage a progressive marriage while navigating deep pain. She even described me as well-meaning, but emotionally manipulative, someone who weaponized vulnerability to hide a quietly controlling nature. She didn't need to accuse me of anything explicit. All she had to do was paint a picture and hand people the brush. The fallout was immediate. My job didn't fire me, but HR asked me to take a little space. My coworkers were polite, but their eyes told the truth. My mom called and asked why Jess's journal was making rounds in her Facebook group. She was crying. I told her I didn't want to talk about it. I felt like a ghost in my own life. And Kala? She went dark, deleted her socials, didn't answer texts. I assumed Jessa got to her, maybe threatened her, maybe guilted her, maybe both. I don't blame her. I should, but I can't. I was the fool who thought pain shared was connection. I forgot that people often protect the one who hurts them most. I tried writing a post of my own, tried telling my version, but every draft felt hollow, defensive, like I was trying to convince a jury of people who'd already voted me guilty. I deleted it all. I wasn't built for this kind of warfare. Jessa knew that. That's the thing that still haunts me. She knew me too well. She knew how I'd react, how I'd shut down, how I'd fold under attention. She didn't have to keep shouting her story. She just had to light it and walk away, knowing I'd burn quietly in the background. And somewhere in all of this, I started to wonder if maybe she was right. Maybe I was weak. Maybe I was emotionally manipulative without meaning to be. Maybe sleeping with Kala wasn't about rebellion or loneliness. Maybe it was some coward's attempt at being seen. You ever have a moment where you don't recognize your own reflection? Not because of how you look, but because you've become the exact thing you swore you'd never be? That was me, standing in my hallway, staring into the mirror we bought together from a street fair in Portland, wondering if this was always who I was, or if loving Jessa had just reshaped me into a villain more convenient for her story. Because the version of me she created, that one was easier to hate, easier to leave, easier to sell, and I had no one left to tell the truth. 3 weeks passed. I barely left the house. Every time I did, I felt eyes. The kind of not quite staring stares that slip away when you turn to meet them. My neighbors, my barista, even the dog walker who used to wave. Everyone acted like I'd been recast as the antagonist in my own neighborhood. And maybe I had. My phone buzzed constantly for the first week. Then it stopped. Silence is crueler when you get used to the noise. I would have welcomed another angry DM or a passive-aggressive Facebook comment at that point. Anything was better than the hollow ache of being irrelevant in the fallout of your own scandal. Jessa, meanwhile, was thriving, or at least performing like she was. Her blog exploded in popularity. She started a podcast, Healing in the Gray. She talked about self-empowerment, boundaries, navigating betrayal with grace. She was interviewed on some local radio show. She even did a photo shoot in a sunflower field, wearing white. Can you believe that? White. Like she was reborn. The patron saint of the emotionally wounded. And then came the email. From someone I didn't recognize. Subject line, I worked with your wife. You need to know something. I almost deleted it. Figured it was spam or some new creative way to call me garbage. But something about the wording made me pause. The sender was named Ray. She claimed to be Jess's former assistant from a job she had 2 years before the open marriage started. Long before the public stories, the blog posts, or even the workshops. The body of the email wasn't long, but it was devastating. I don't know if this will help or hurt, but I feel responsible. Jessa used to talk about the concept of an open marriage before she even got married. She once said the key to making people feel like the bad guy is to give them just enough freedom to hang themselves with. She used to say, people can't help but touch the red button when you tell them not to. I didn't think much of it at the time, but when I saw your name in the story, I recognized the playbook. She's done this before, not with a husband, but with friends, partners, clients. I saw her destroy people and walk away shiny. I didn't say anything then. I'm sorry for that. I read the email 3 times. My mouth tasted like metal. There was a timestamp on one of the forwarded messages Ray had included from Jess's old work account. A calendar invite, labeled, Future Project, Controlled Collapse. And inside, just one note, build trust, break quietly, exit clean. I don't even know how to describe what that did to me. The timeline, the framing, everything I thought had been reaction, a last resort, some chaotic explosion caused by a tired marriage, was actually part of a long design. Not a spontaneous failure, but a strategy. She had been planning the end before I ever saw the beginning. It made sense now. The open marriage wasn't about self-discovery. It was about engineering a villain, giving me a stage and watching to see when I'd trip. Because people don't doubt a story if the ending matches the image. And she had spent years drawing me as the emotionally aloof, slightly broken husband who was always one sip away from betraying her. All she had to do was wait. Push gently. Let the rope fall. The worst part? I thought I was finally making choices. Going to the resort. Letting Kala in. Saying no to the leash. But the truth was, she never lost control. She just made me think I had it. I hadn't left the house in 5 days. Not really. I'd stepped out to take the trash, fed Winston, paced the hallway 100 times like a dog in a cage, but I hadn't faced the world. Not after Ray's email. Not after finding out that the implosion of my life was not a spontaneous explosion, but a carefully timed demolition. It had all been staged. The open marriage. The resort. Kala. Even the fallout. A campaign, scripted and sold. She had handed me the matches, stacked the kindling in a circle, and waited until I struck the flame. She wanted me to burn. And I did. Right on cue. But this time, I wasn't going to play the part. I wasn't going to be silent anymore. I put on a decent shirt, something neutral. No logo. No slogans. No emotional landmines. I printed the emails from Ray. Highlighted the calendar invite, the quotes, the timestamps. I didn't do it for court. I didn't even do it for revenge. I just wanted her to look me in the eye and know that I finally saw her. Jessa was hosting another one of her healing salons that night. A cozy word for a curated evening of wine, soft lighting, and veiled trauma stories passed around like cheese platters. It was invitation only, of course. But I knew where it was, some overpriced wellness loft downtown that used to be a yoga studio, and now probably charged $75 for tea and emotional cleansing. I showed up uninvited. The woman at the front, probably some friend-turned-brand ambassador, tried to stop me at the door. I told her calmly that I was Jess's husband. Her actual husband, not the fictional villain she wrote for her blog. The woman looked startled. She didn't say no. She just stepped aside. The loft smelled like lavender and expensive guilt. People were barefoot, lounging on floor cushions. Jessa stood at the front, barefoot too, flowing linen dress, her hair down in soft waves. She looked like someone on a book cover. She always knew how to build the moment. She was in the middle of a sentence when she saw me. Her voice caught, just for a second, like a skipped beat in a song. Then she smiled, that smooth, PR smile, and said, "Looks like we have a surprise visitor." Polite laughter, nervous glances. I didn't smile back. "I won't stay long," I said, voice steady. "But since I've been a character in the story you're telling, I thought it was fair to bring some." Deleted scenes. I pulled the printed emails from my coat. No drama. No yelling. I just handed them to her. She hesitated, the first real crack in her mask. Her fingers trembled just slightly as she took the pages, scanning them, flipping past the parts she knew were hers. The room was quiet now. Too quiet. When she got to the line Ray had highlighted, build trust. Break quietly. Exit clean. She looked up at me, face pale. Then something unexpected happened. She laughed. Soft at first. Then louder. She shook her head, let the papers fall onto the floor like leaves. "You really think anyone here wants to see this?" she said, voice still coated in honey. "You think this is proof of something? That I'm some monster with a plan?" No one answered. But no one rushed to her defense either. She walked toward me, closer than I expected. She leaned in, eyes burning. "You always needed to believe you were the good one," she whispered, voice low enough only I could hear. "Even when you stopped loving me, even when you chose her. You think this changes anything? It doesn't. Because I'm the one who told the story first. And that's all anyone remembers." And maybe she was right. Maybe it didn't matter that I had evidence, that I had witnesses, that I had truth. Because she'd already sold the ending, wrapped it in soft lighting and curated empathy. But before I turned to leave, I said one last thing, something I hadn't even planned. I didn't come here to convince them, I said. I came so you'd know. I finally see what you are. Not who you are, what you are. And I'm done playing in your little morality theater. I left before she could reply. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I just sat by the window, Winston curled at my feet, and listened to the city. Let her keep the stage. Let her keep the audience. I was done being a character in a story I didn't write. But little did I know, the story wasn't done with me. 6 months passed. Enough time for the headlines to die. For the whispers to move on to someone else's scandal. For Jessa to pivot again. This time, into trauma-informed brand coaching, whatever that means. She still got her followers. Still hosting her little wine-lit circles of curated empathy. And I've stopped checking. The story of us, or rather, the story she told, still floats around in pieces online. I'll always be someone's cautionary tale, someone's villain. And for a while, that tore me apart. But then something strange happened. I got bored of being angry. One morning, I was refilling Winston's food bowl and realized I hadn't thought about her in days. Not really. Not with venom. Not with longing. Just nothing. And that's when I knew I was finally free. Not because I won. Not because I exposed her. But because I stopped living like my pain needed to be proven. I moved out of the house. Sold it. Bought a tiny place 2 hours upstate with ugly carpet and a broken mailbox. Fixed both. Got good at chopping wood. I learned how to make French toast from scratch. I started walking barefoot in the morning dew because someone online said it resets your nervous system. Maybe that's nonsense. Maybe not. But it felt good. And then, one ordinary Tuesday, Kala wrote to me. No drama. No emotional essay. Just a short message. I'm in therapy now. I'm not ready to talk, but I wanted to say thank you. You were the first person who ever really looked at me. I stared at that line for a long time. Not because I expected it. Not because I needed it. But because she didn't owe me anything, and she still chose to say it. I didn't reply. Not yet. Maybe someday. Or maybe that moment was enough. A thread left hanging. Not to be tied up, but to remind me that not everything broken has to be fixed. Some things just are. And that's okay. I still have that email from Ray. I keep it in a folder called Truth I Needed. But I don't open it anymore. Not because I've forgotten what happened, but because I finally forgave myself for not seeing it sooner. There's this tree behind my new place. Huge, ancient, gnarled thing with a lightning scar down its side. It should have fallen years ago, but it's still there. Still growing. A little crooked. A little tougher than the others. I think about that tree a lot. Some wounds don't ruin you. They just change the shape of your roots. And if that means I'm not who I used to be, then good. That version of me died in a resort suite with someone else's rules in his hands. This new version? He's still a little whiny. Still drinks too much coffee. Still talks to his dog like he's a roommate. But he's learning how to build a life that doesn't depend on someone else clapping for him. So yeah, my wife opened our marriage. And I took her sister to a luxury resort. She cried. Said, it was supposed to be me. But she was wrong. It was never supposed to be her. It was supposed to be the ending. So I could finally start something that was mine.